I have a gentleman in front of me who I am sure has strong views on crossing picket lines. Don't you, young man? Jamie
I do, young lady, yeah.
He's in the studio with me. How are you?
Absolutely marvellous. Thanks very much indeed, yeah.
And what have you been doing since we last saw you? Because it's been... Jamie Kelsey-Fry, incidentally, is from the New Internationalist, but many other things too.
Yeah, there's loads of other things. I mean, my main thing is I'm the contributing editor for New Internationalist magazine,
Yeah.
but I work in the activist world a great deal, so there's a lot of issues that... It's not as if we're kind of tied for what should we be campaigning about at the moment, you know, so there's a lot of issues to be really drawing attention to. I'm working with a lot of people connected to DPAC. That's a really interesting campaign. So that's Disabled People Against Cuts.
Sounds very Asian when you say DPAC.
Yes, DPAC.
Doesn't it? Because Sonny and Shay earlier were talking about attitudes to disabled people in the Asian community, and then I only caught a little bit of it. But so Disabled People Against Cuts, and what are you actually doing within that organisation, or what are you doing to raise awareness?
The information about it will be coming out over the next 2-3 weeks. We're targeting a particular date,
yeah,
and it's a completely official campaign demonstration day. But it's really remembrance. So it's going to be. Over 10,000 people have died since, I think you know Atos. Atos is the organisation employed to check people who are on disability benefits and to decide...
This is means testing, isn't it?
Means testing, yeah, exactly. There's been ever such a lot of stuff that's been reported about, that's been questioning the means by which Atos decide who can work and who can't. But it's estimated that 10,600 people have died since Atos have said you are able to work. So they've either died through committing suicide or they died from the illness that Atos said it's not that bad and you can go and work. This is a really devastating...
Over what time period is that? Do you know?
Since Atos... Oh, that they've died?
Yeah. No, well, since
Atos has come in.
So how long ago? How long are we talking?
Year and a half, 2 years.
That's not. That's a huge number, isn't it? Over that period of time.
It's a number that everyone should know, and that's what we're going to be drawing attention to. So I've been working quite a lot with that. I do normal things too, by the way. Okay.
What do you mean normal? What is normal?
Well, those people who are listening, you know, New Internationalists. Obviously, I'm very much involved in this world of global justice.
You can come a little bit closer to the mic, apparently.
Oh, I can.
Mel's.
I'm out here in the corridor, everybody.
Apparently that is how you sounded. That's my fault entirely, Jamie, because I told you to move back slightly.
I can handle that.
Yes, what are the normal things then? Define normal.
We did a normal thing today, which is brilliant. I really recommend your listeners check this out. We went to the British Museum, myself and a really good friend, Joanna Peacock, who's listening at the moment, actually.
Hello, Joanna.
Hello, Joanna. She's a real fantastic sculptress, but ages ago, I mean, imagine this in your room, she basically made copies of those 40,000-year-old sort of earth goddesses that have been found in caves around the world, you know.
With the ridiculous large chests and strange-shaped legs and no real heads and necks.
Yes, so she made one...
I know what you mean.
She made one about 1 metre high, and it's in our room, you know. It's quite an imposing thing to have in your room, do you know what I mean? Anyway, we went to the British Museum. There's a fantastic exhibition there. I think it's called Ice Age, The Advent of the Human Mind. And it's basically looking at all these artefacts and trying to see what was happening culturally, because this is the development of culture. It's sort of the only thing we've got to reflect the culture of prehistoric humans, you know. And it's a very strange atmosphere going in there. And they've got a great room where it's made out like a cave, and they're superimposing on top of it using film the kind of famous cave paintings in Lascaux in France and stuff like that.
Did you see the Bavarian filmmaker's film, The Cave of Unforgotten... Was it called Cave of Unforgotten Dreams?
No,
Werner Herzog's movie?
Have you seen this?
Oh, I saw it in 3D as well.
Yes, but that's right.
But do you know what? You just need to see 10 minutes of that film. That's it. Everything happens in those 10 minutes, and then he just regurgitates and goes over. It's almost like he's got to justify the fact that he was using, 3D. Which come down, stalactites or stalagmites?
Stalactites come down.
Right. So that's all that stuff is incredibly interesting in 3D. But the rest, and the only other bit, I'm going to give away the ending of the film now. At the very ending, Mel, it's a documentary. It's not a story with any resolution. Look at his face.
I've never seen a man look so sad.
At the end of the film, he touches on the fact that there are albino crocodiles in a place not too far away from these caves. And you think, this is a whole other film and story. How can you possibly do this only at the end? So I take this back, Jamie.
Yes.
See the first 10 minutes that cover the caves and the drawings and where that comes from and how remarkable that is. Go to the end, see the albino alligators, and that's all you need to know. Anyway, so in this cave, you see these...
Yeah, you see the famous Lascaux paintings and all the kind of things that were being painted at, when I say at that time, we've got to remind ourselves we're talking 40,000 years ago. Something, when I was on your show last, one of the things that I'm really keen on, my degree, part of my degree was in religious studies. I'm very interested in our first religions. And you corrected me brilliantly, because I was, blithely saying, oh, yes, and of course, the idea of a male god's actually a very recent thing, and you were reminding me, of course, that there's so many female gods that are in the Hindu religion.
Yes,
but you're looking at all these earth goddess figures that were everywhere across the world, and it reminds you of the idea that is most common for kind of archaeologists to talk about, which is that all religions originally in prehistoric times were matriarchal.
What went wrong?
Well, listen, I'll tell you, you're a bit younger than me, but I remember when I was about 9, life-changing sort of safari programme on TV. Basically, they'd spend about 15 years following all the ape tribes in Africa. 75% are matriarchal. Sorry, 75% are patriarchal, 25% are matriarchal, okay? And they just kept going from patriarchal to matriarchal, matriarchal, and the patriarchal ones attack each other, beat everyone up for power, rape, and attack other species for no reason, not even to eat, just for sport, okay? And it kept cutting from this very, very violent thing to the matriarchal ones who do 3 things. They make love, eat banana, and play with the kids. And I was going, I know which one I'm going to do.
What a lovely existence.
Yeah.
I like that very much. I had a ding-dong on air with Cuban Tony the other day.
That sounds really dangerous, Cuban Tony.
He is, isn't he? But we had a bit of a fight. We like it there. It's good badinage.
Yeah.
But it was about patrilineal and matrilineal societies, and I was talking... Because he made a very sweeping statement about Asian cultures repressing women, so I was just pointing out that certain states in southern India have been matriarchal for years.
Oh, yeah, Kerala, here we come.
Well, that's
very
what I was talking about, yeah. Now, we've completely digressed, but it doesn't matter because you're fascinating. Let's talk about what is 1 Billion Rising.
Well, that goes along with what we've been talking about. Now, 1 Billion Rising, there was a huge amount of women who were dancing at the same time around the world on Valentine's Day.
Not enough in London, apparently.
No, not a big show out in London at all, but in India, very, very big deal.
And Egypt and everywhere else that I looked.
Afghanistan,
yes.
10,000 women dancing in Afghanistan. Culturally, that's just absolutely astonishing, because what your listeners might know is all of these women were dancing to protest against violence against women. Okay, so dancing in somewhere like Afghanistan, that's a fantastic statement to be making. There was a stadium, the New Internationalist ran a blog. One of our kind of earliest writers and bloggers is a great Indian writer. And she wrote a blog about attending the event in a big stadium in Gujarat. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. Very well pronounced too.
Gujarat. Remember, my wife is Indian, half Indian and half Russian. But she attended the stadium there, like I say, 10,000 women all celebrating, dancing at the same time. And it's for India, it was a big deal because, of course, everyone knows that there was the huge story, the rape and murder case, yeah. But I wanted to bring it up partly because I think it's a fantastic campaign to be drawing attention to and ending violence against women, particularly the fact that it's really a campaign that started hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and it's people who tend to think we've dealt with women's rights, everything's equal now, and it's just so not true. So it's definitely not true in the majority world, and it's definitely not true, unfortunately, in this country still.
For people who don't know how this has come about, shall we quickly praise Eve Ensler's movement? She's decided... Eve Ensler is the woman who wrote the...
Vagina Monologues.
Vagina Monologues. I did the Vagina Monologues last year at the South Bank with an all-Asian cast, and Eve Ensler was there as well. I think they're a bit dated now, to be honest. I think they need to be upgraded.
Yeah.
But I think they're really powerful when they're translated for other communities.
Absolutely.
And when it works for, an indigenous community somewhere in Africa where their traditions are very, to us, they are completely different. And those stories are really important to tell. But it's so commendable what she is doing with 1 Billion Rising. So she wants Valentine's Day to be V-Day, as in Vagina Day, and for women to seize the power, in a sense. You can take it from here, Mr. Kelsey-Fry.
Well, and also the phrase, break the silence. I really like her use of that phrase. So what we're picking up on for your listeners is an article that was in The Guardian, written by Eve Ensler, as Nikki says, and she's explaining that she's been having an event every year that's inspired by V-Day, by Vagina Monologues, but she decided to try and take it much, much further. There was a real feel in all the kind of promo leading up to it, though. It's the website. I kept trying to get on it, and it was crashing on the day because so many people were using it. It reminded me of the Make Poverty History campaign quite a while ago, and that's dangerous because I have a feeling that the way human society works in terms of raising awareness about an issue is if you kind of make a big promo, hyped-up event, and everyone goes, yes, I support that. You know, with Make Poverty History, a lot of people got their little white bands, you know, and they attend, you know, down in London, they attended a big gig. And then you all go home and go, right, I've done that. There's no more poverty, you know. And I'm a bit worried with 1 billion rising in the sense that, OK, just by going out and doing this one day, you know, no, there's no more violence against women. We don't have to talk about it because I did something on Valentine's Day, which is really dangerous. But I must suggest, though, with someone like Eve Ensler behind it, and the kind of crew that are behind it, then, you know, maybe this could go somewhere else. And that's what I'm interested in. Where does it go from here?
Well, I think you raise a really good point in general about people putting on those wristbands or doing things just to... I mean, I guess any sort of raising awareness is good, but it is about consistently trying to make a change.
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
Just...
Not one day in a year.
No, I agree. Yeah. I completely agree. But it's let's keep our eyes on this. It was very disappointing for me. You asked me when we were playing the track if I went along to dance, and so I would most definitely have supported this had I not had to do something else, which was very sad. But I did strangely go and see Jon Snow at the end of a lunch he was having with a friend of mine, and John had just come back from reporting and looking at everybody outside Parliament. So I knew from him that it was very small but sweet, if you like. But I think he's too diplomatic to say, but I think he was quite surprised at what a small turnout we had here in London.
It was. I think they were using Parliament Square, weren't they? But there were, across the UK, quite a number of small groups doing it. Some friends of mine down in North Devon. I don't know if anyone has seen the video, because there's a specific dance you've got to do, and it's actually quite complicated.
Indeed.
So there's all these my
well, that sort of puts me off in the first place, but I would have just been there.
I'd just have a boogie, and that'll do, but you've got to actually choreograph yourself.
No, you do. And but also, as a couple of my girlfriends have said, who are therapists, I'm sorry, but women who are being raped and you know, suffered violence at the hands of men, the last thing they want to do is dance. But look, that's just another point of view, isn't it? Anyway, 1 billion rising, and
good story.
A lot of people from the world of entertainment made little videos and posted them and did their bit. So it's all good.
Yes,
what else have you got,
Where does
Jamie?
it go from here, and as, you know, how will people continue it? I've got something about tax, but you've just been talking about tax, so here's a story that no one's been talking about all week, the horse meat scandal. But I wanted to go back to it briefly because
you know the irony of us doing War Horse as our book. Honestly, I can't tell you what bad timing it was in some way. And the other thing is, because I've never read do you know what? I watched the film as a screener, an Oscar screener, a couple of years ago. Yeah. And because I don't really have an affinity with animals, and I can't stand Spielberg's sort of schlockification, caramelisation of so many subjects and the way he shoots things, I watched it on fast forward going, no. I haven't seen the theatre production yet. So I have to say I was looking forward to reading the book. I did say at the very beginning, I'm sorry, a horse is talking to me? No, I don't think so. Anyway, I've read it, and then there's a lot to be said for this beautiful little book. Oh. But when it gets to the part where the horses are going to be kept in France and made into horse meat, and I don't mean to laugh, I'm suddenly thinking, this is the worst timing. But when we chose the book, we knew nothing about the... No. Right, over to you for a news report on that.
Everyone knows about the meat scandal and how it's sort of spinning out, but I think I listened pretty carefully, and there's a point that I think is really worth... some questions really worth asking. You know, is this just a blip, or is it an inevitable in an economic system driven by the need for continually growing profits? So I think, you know, I don't know if people... There's a much lesser story this week, which was another garment factory. I don't know if you know this, Nikki, but another garment factory in Bangladesh was set fire. You do?
I do.
So you can just look at this as... And they're trying to make it out as an isolated incident, or you can look at it as a symptom of the economic system that's driving this world at the moment. The economic system that's driving this world at the moment is very clear. It has to be continual, infinite profits, and that means you'll reach a stage where you cut corners. So cutting corners putting a bit of horse meat in with your beef. But it's much more serious, cutting corners as in, let's not do proper health and safety on this garment factory in Bangladesh. In fact, huge amounts of people die every day because of this economic system being purely driven by infinite growth. And I just think that's a really good example of this horse meat scandal. There's going to be much worse things than this that's happening in the world at the moment because of the way the economic system is structured, you know. Are they arrested, you know, because they've arrested some people for it? You know, are they just rare gangsters of the food industry, or were they just the unlucky ones who were caught? I think that they're just the unlucky ones who were caught. It could have been a fish scandal as far as I'm concerned. Does cartel-like behaviour by a number of small players mean that prices will always go up? That's a very important thing that's going on as well. Excuse me.
Oh, dear.
I don't know if people know, but water has just gone up in price as well. Now, that's a very much cartel-like behaviour that's happening. In this country, fuel prices are completely controlled by just the 6 big businesses that run it. So they've got a real cartel organisation on pushing prices up the whole time. You know, does this system mean that suppliers are driven to cut costs in pursuit of greater profit margins, so much so that human rights abuses in, for example, Bangladesh garment factory and diseased horse meat in burgers are absolutely inevitable? And I really think that's what's the real story behind this. Okay?
I mean, that's a perspicacious way of looking at all this, and I hope that people will start to think about this a little bit more. And you're right to look at it from a world perspective, not just a Tesco or Findus perspective. You don't eat meat, do you?
My fantastic wife, Anita, is an amazing vegetarian cook, but we do eat meat very occasionally. Organic meat. And that's
so you're like me. You're not big meat eaters.
I used to be, but not now, no.
And do you feel better not eating meat?
Yeah, I do. I feel it's very, very odd because when you do eat meat, if you don't eat it usually, particularly if you eat beef, you do feel heavier. It's really odd. It's like I just feel like I've eaten a load of lead because it sticks in your gut for ages. You know.
Yeah, it's not as digestible, is it?
We were out last night and we went past one of those, you know, the kind of late night stalls selling hot dogs on the street. We went past about 3. We were just like running past, going, horse meat. That's just ruining everyone's like drunken snack. They're having such a ball doing that.
But you see, I don't think people who are vegetarians can afford to be sanctimonious just yet, because goodness only knows what might be going in their veggie sausages or that. I mean,
absolutely.
you know, so we all need to wait on this. Mel puts a very good question forth. Who should be blamed for the horse meat scandal?
I was very much involved in Occupy, I still am, but you can't put your finger on individuals. You've got to look at the system itself. It's just, you know, I'm not hugely educated in any way about economics or politics, but anyone can get their head around this simple statement, you know. An economic system based on infinite growth, but which relies on finite resources, is very, very, very embarrassing. And that's the system we're in at the moment. And we should be ashamed of ourselves for not drawing attention to it, for looking at it on a global scale. What kind of responsibility do we have? Do we have a responsibility just to ourselves and our small groups around us?
Well, I think most people in this country seem to behave like that, don't they?
Currently, it's a very
in any first world country, we don't know how lucky we are, do we?
No, we don't. You know, when people go on holiday, they're going to see the veneer that's there for tourists. But you know, there's 2 sides to that story, though, because the fact is, I was a New Internationalist. We organised a speech last year, and we had a fantastic African speaker, and she reminded us of the fact that yes, you may be in the first world, you've all got your phones and your gizmos and your TV shows, but then she described life in her village, and it was like, wow. You know, she said we really respect our elders. You know, if you've got a problem, you speak to the elders. They're wise. We listen to them. And
they take care of them.
They take care of them. They take care of their kids. Everyone looks after each other. I mean, I lived in Thailand for 3 years in the late 80s, okay? And this is a very exciting thing that happened because I'm a total chicken kind of guy. But I lent someone the equivalent of 200 quid, and as collateral, he gave me a enormous motorbike, all right? And he gave me a 10-minute lesson riding this hog. The first thing you do is you sit on it. He says, right, you've got to get used to the weight. And I just leaned like an inch to the left, and it all just collapsed and nearly broke my leg. And he just showed me how to use it and then said, right, bye, enjoy. And that was on the edge of Bangkok, you know. And I had to go, I lived in the middle of Bangkok, so I had to try. It was, you know, I could have died.
Did you get your £200 back?
No, I kept the bike.
Okay.
I fell in love with it. But the point I'm making is this, you know, it's along the lines of what we're saying, and I learned so much out there, but this was a big lesson. So I learned how to speak the language, and every weekend I just get on the bike and just go off to a little village out in the middle of nowhere, and they'd see me turn up and they're going, oh my God, you know, he's a tourist who's got lost. But I'd get off, get out of my bag a couple of bottles of whiskey and speak Thai. And they were going, oh, brilliant. And I was saying, no, I'm not lost. I'd like to just hang out here. And I just would sit and chat with the people of the village through the night. And here's a moment that sticks with me forever. These guys, it was about 2 a.m, they're going, hey, Jamie, is it true that in your countries, right, you have these people that you pay lots of money to, and you go and tell them all your problems, and they try and sort out your problems? And I was going, yeah, they're called psychiatrists, psychotherapists. And they were going, don't you have friends in your country? And I just thought, wow.
There's some truth in that, though, isn't there?
So, on the one hand, yes, we're the first world, and we should be much more conscious of how we're affecting the rest of the planet and how we're affecting each other. And on the other hand, I don't think we're that civilised. Famously what Gandhi said about Western civilisation. Do you know what he said?
Well, I didn't know lots of things he said.
Gandhi said about he was asked about Western civilisation. His reply was, sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. Did you read the Tony Judd book, by the way?
All I've read is the intro, because it's just a crazy life I'm living at the moment.
Well, I'm so glad you got it. Well done, you.
No. I'm really interested to see what your recommendation is.
Yeah.
So, should we move on to another...
Judge me upon it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, please. Okay. Happily judge me upon that book. Tony Judd, Ill Fares the Land, for any of you who would like a little bit of political insight that makes my mind tick. Should we talk about the Arctic?
Thank you. One of the for your benefit of your listeners, generally my remit is choose big stories of the week. And this is not a big story, and that's why I've chosen it, because it's hidden away with BBC. They've covered it, but it's in the science and environment section on the internet, and there's only a couple of very small websites that have covered it, but it's very dramatic news. So Cryosat, it's a way of measuring the thickness of the ice in the Arctic. Cryosat spots Arctic sea ice loss in autumn, and if you look into the story, I mean, this one is quite scientific in the way that they've written about it. But the essence is simple. The ice caps are melting. They are melting. It's going to have absolutely devastating effects on everybody on this planet. And we are sending, huge fossil fuel corporations going up there. They're drilling, and we have to stop and go, is this a good idea? We are pushing our planet, our species plummeting towards climate chaos. It's not a scare story. I'm not some crazy lefty nutter who doesn't think straight. I'm someone who works for New Internationalist, and we've been writing about it for a long time. Anyone who looks into this with a cogent, clear head, it becomes very clear that we're hurtling towards climate chaos, and we have to address the issues. And do you know what? The solutions are not bad. A lot of people go, well, what am I going to do then? Live in a cave with a candle? Is that what we're going to do? No, I mean, what's fascinating is the solutions actually make for a better life. So, for example, if you want to move away from fossil fuels, you start looking at renewable and sustainable forms of energy.
Yeah.
So that means huge amount of jobs, 1 million jobs apparently, 1 million jobs will be created just in this country if you want to make that switch, OK? You also are looking at a lifestyle whereby we're not expending huge amounts of fossil fuel by I mean, this always got to me anyway. You're buying apples from Australia. What is the point of that? Or you're buying, out of season fruit from Israel or South America.
I mean, for a while, there were quite a few people talking on television, in magazines and newspapers, quite effectively saying, don't buy anything that's come from more than 50 miles outside your town that you're living in or whatever. So buy British, buy in season. And I saw quite a few people trying to do that, and then it all stopped.
Yes, it was a really good initiative. Well, it's quite hard to do that. That's what's crazy, is to live a life like that. It's actually quite difficult to kind of find stuff that's sourced within 50 miles. But you're anticipating exactly what I was going to say.
Am I?
Yeah, yes, you are, young lady. So the solution involves a situation where people are sourcing all their food from 50-mile radius. So you end up eating seasonal food that comes from your country. So you're supporting the kind of economy of your country. But also, you need to look at lifestyles whereby we're not working 5 days a week, because this is a very strange life that this species is living at the moment. I mean, a couple of 100 years ago, there was a lot of holidays. Work was a smaller part of what life was about. Life was about living, was about family, socialising and loving.
Well, nobody's ever going to lie on their deathbed and say, I wish I'd worked some more, are they? They're going to lie there and go, I wish I'd loved some more, or spent some more time with my family, or...
Oh, so true.
You know?
There is a deathbed story that struck a chord with us at New Internationalist a while ago. ago, which was a Japanese businessman on his deathbed. He couldn't remember the name of anyone in his family. He could only remember the name of the corporation that he was working for.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
That's sci-fi, isn't it?
And then everyone turned him into green patties and ate him because it was soil and green, yeah. No, so the solutions are actually the kind of lifestyle we're just talking about here, where people work 2 days a week, you work for a job, generally online, and the other day a week, you will be working in your community. And then the other 4 days a week, you live. You live and love with your family and you socialise, and you have a situation whereby you can continue to educate yourself, because education ends at 16 for so many people, unless if you're rich. So, you know, we're actually leading ourselves down a really dreadfully dreary life at the moment. And the solutions to, the kind of solutions to avoiding fossil fuels and having a kind of more zero carbon situation is actually proved to be, it would be a much, much happier life for everyone. But we just have to get off this crazy rat race, this crazy kind of infinite growth at all costs, you know, and all this stuff, which is just senseless. I mean, you're right. People are miserable. I mean, there's no one going to lie on their deathbed and say, I wish I'd worked some more. You know, and that's an incredibly important thing to be saying, you know. I think there's no one who's listening to us tonight who's going, no, I really think it's brilliant that we work 5 days a week, and I'm really grateful for those weekends, but I want to get back. Well, it depends, actually. Maybe some people have got a terrible family life, and they're just dying to go back to work.
Or if you
tomorrow.
are, you know, an artist in any way, and the muse takes you, or you just have to, that's a different thing.
Totally. I mean, I'm a writer, and that's not work to me. That's
no, there you go.
Pleasure.
And that's slightly different, isn't
it?
Yeah. Revoluia. Like that.
But it's, so just to remind folks, look, what they're showing is this is absolutely categorical scientific proof that the Arctic ice cap is melting. This will really radically change the way human beings are living on this planet.
Now, what about all the naysayers who will state that we've had this happen before and the planet readjusts?
Well, we've never had ice caps melt, for a start.
Right.
But there's a mate of mine who's writing a book about the naysayers. It's an industry, okay? This is an industry. It's easy to trace back. The Koch brother, Greenpeace have quite a lot of money, so they're able to kind of do really good legal investigations. 3 years ago, the Koch brothers, I think I pronounced them as, that's Koch, huge fossil...
It's actually Koch.
Okay.
No, it is, seriously,
I didn't know how to pronounce
yeah.
it. Okay. So the Koch brothers, very famous fossil fuel corporation in the States, you know, they were proved to be funding these websites and funding these individuals, funding these pseudo-scientists going... Yes, no, it's all rubbish, and this has happened before, and we can keep burning fossil fuels and nothing will go wrong. There's a huge industry in paying people to talk rubbish. The way to understand it, interestingly, is look at what happened to smoking, OK? In America, when the scientists started proving that smoking is linked to lung cancer, watch what happened. This is where the famous advertising agency, William Morris, started. They were pretty small. And then a conglomerate of the tobacco industries came to them and they said, what are we going to do about this? Because, you know, we're going to lose a bit of business here because, you know, the stories are saying that smoking gives you cancer. And so William Morris got together a kind of organisation and went, we'll sort this out. So the first thing they did was they invented, I can't remember the name of it. You can look it up in my book, The RACS Toolkit. But they invented some organisation, something like Responsible Scientists for Tobacco or something. And then they had a load of scientists who put their names to it, you know, and they was... read it as well, because what they did was they worded it in a way where they weren't lying, but they sowed seeds of doubt, and they also created the idea that there's a polarity here. Some people say that it does cause lung cancer, some people say that it doesn't, but the way they worded it means that they couldn't be legally chased. But what they did do is sow the seeds of doubt in the minds of the population, so they didn't think about it any deeper. And this is what's happening with climate chaos. It's absolute reality.
You're very anti-smoking, aren't you? I'm
anti the fact I'm a smoker, yeah. It's the most addictive thing that I know, and I've given up so many times.
I had this really random text the night before last from a lady who was just imploring me to support her. She gave up smoking on the 7th of January. She's still not smoking.
Good luck to you if you're listening. Brilliant.
Yeah, and she just wanted to say, please, I want to send a message out to anybody else who's in the same situation as me. Just stick at it. Yeah. Then, weirdly, I met a friend of mine on another radio show who had also given up on January the 7th. She's smoking some herbal rubbish.
That doesn't work as rubbish.
Well, she said it smells like burning rabbit hutch, which I've never smelt before. But the thing is, the smell that came through the pub door where we were all waiting for her to come in from smoking, it was horrendous. But I just so admire the fact that she is quitting, and is making every effort to. And I know it is one of the most insidious, awful habits. And
have you ever been an addict?
Oh gosh, yeah. No, I'm not. You know what? I'm so lucky. I am not an addict.
Now,
so I have smoked for years. Yeah. But I was never a dirty smoker, as I call it. Like
dirty smoker.
No, yeah. I couldn't ever sit in a room with the windows closed and have smoke curling around me. Yeah. I couldn't be in a house where there was smoke. There would have to be fresh air. Yeah. And I couldn't smoke without a drink. And I don't mean an alcoholic drink. I mean, I couldn't have a dry smoke. But I used to enjoy smoking once in a while, but I could take it or leave it.
Yeah, that's
and it's the
incredible.
Same. I still love, if I'm at a party and I'm with people who are having a nice smoke outside, often the most interesting people, I will smoke with them. But I'm very lucky.
Yeah,
I'm very lucky.
Maybe that's your Indian gene, because Anita, my wife, is Indian, half Indian, and she's the same. She can smoke. And they're not on a Friday night, it doesn't bother her in the slightest. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if it is an Indian gene. Yeah. My father was a smoking addict. He's fully Indian.
There's a lot of smokers out in India.
He used to abuse his intelligence because he was a surgeon. And he used to say that smoking prevents ulcerative colitis, Parkinson's, and degenerative senility. So he said he'd rather smoke. But I'm sorry to tell you all that he had a smoking heart attack and then he did die. So, so much for the other diseases being avoided.
It's interesting, isn't it? But to remind your listeners, the reason we bring it up is look at the history of how the tobacco industry employed pseudoscientists and organisations to sow seeds of doubt about whether smoking causes lung cancer or not. And the same operation is happening with climate chaos now and the way climate change is being described.
That's a fantastic story to highlight. Thank you very much for that.
It's an absolute pleasure.
And we do have time to quickly mention George Osborne urging multinational tax crackdown, and then I want to get on to the Poundland Kate Riley story.
Cool. Yeah, OK, lovely.
Is that all right? Can we do it? Do you have anything else there?
No. Good. It was amazing.
OK.
So, George Osborne, there was quite a lot. And funny enough, he wrote for The Guardian. I didn't realise it. When I came in, I saw The Observer. He's actually written for The Observer. What a strange world we live in when Osborne's writing for The Observer. Fantastic.
Well, it's what they always say, isn't it? Don't preach to the converted.
Yeah, OK, fair dues. Yeah. So I'm sure most of your listeners, because they're a highly attentive audience, know about this story. George Osborne urges multinational tax crackdown. Now, one of the things that came to my mind straight away when I read it is that one of the groups I really support and I think amazing is UK Uncut. And I think their use of creative direct action is phenomenal. And we've had a lot of fun. It's very... people think that activism and protest is running around being chased by police and being arrested or we're all loonies breaking windows and all this stuff. And it's not at all. Look at the history of protests and it's not like that. And UK Uncut really, they're masters of it. And recently, people might remember that Starbucks suddenly went, OK, we're going to pay 400 million of the tax because they've been avoiding. So remember, the word avoiding is... They're doing it legally. They've been avoiding paying as much tax as they should be. So they said, right, we're going to pay 400 million in extra tax. But that was because 2 days later, when they made that announcement, UK Uncut had already planned to do an action in 48 Starbucks across the country. We did a massive one in London. We had a brilliant one in London, in one of their main ones. So I'm talking about UK Uncut because this could well be an example, again, that protest and direct action works. Now, you're not going to read that anywhere because I'm sure the government doesn't really want to encourage people to be doing things like this. But it's really through the efforts of great organisations like UK Uncut, Occupy, the Tax Justice Network, that this has become a story that's been forced on the government and they've got to be seen to be doing something. And that's the point I'm making. This is rhetoric. This is them saying, yes, we've listened and we're going to do something about it and you can all go back to sleep, because they won't. There's no way that our government is more powerful than corporations. I'd say that corporations have been more powerful than government since the 50s. Corporations and financial institutions, they've been running the country the planet since the 50s. So this is just mild rhetoric, very similar to what we were saying earlier, where make poverty history in a way. People kind of go, oh, yes, the governments are doing the right thing. The Millennium Development Goals, brilliant. They say all these things. Yeah, oh, wow, they're looking after everyone, everything's great. All right, let's go home and have soup and watch TV. And they don't do any of these things. And this is going to be the same, I guarantee. I mean, if you actually analyse what George Osborne is saying, it's already being done, most of what he's saying anyway. And if you look at the language he's using, this is spin. These politicians are... It's not coincidence that Cameron used to be working PR. He's doing PR for Carlton. But this is the kind of spin language that makes people think, yes, they're doing the right thing. But I highly, highly doubt that anything genuine is going to come from this. A lot of what he's saying about rectifying the kind of tax avoidance that's affecting the majority world, that's already in place. So he's got nothing to do with that anyway. And he's picking on... So they know that, groups like You Can Cut have raised awareness of stuff like Starbucks, Amazon and Google. So they just keep going, yes, we've got to do something about Starbucks, Amazon and Google. That's peanuts compared to proper corporations. If you're talking about Glencore, if you're talking about Xstrata, if you're talking about BP and Shell, that's where serious money is. And we're living in a country at the moment where the media has been used to create a lot of divisions amongst the population, in the sense that a lot of people are going, yes, the reason we're in this mess at the moment is because of people who are claiming benefits when they don't deserve it, or the reason we're in this problem at the moment is because of EMA, let's take it away from teenagers. Let's just keep a focus here. The reason we're in this situation is that we're going through a serious financial crisis that was caused not by the population, but by the financial institutes and the banks of this country who gambled our money away. The only people who aren't paying for the crisis are the people who've caused it. Let's remind ourselves of this. Let's cut through that rubbish rhetoric that's been thrown at us the whole time and remember the cause of this crisis is not us. We should not be paying for it, particularly the most vulnerable in this country. And this is one of those stories where it's... I predict this is one of those stories where it's been thrown up there. Here we are in the Observer, so it must be real because Osborne's talking in the Observer. And yes, we're going to do something about tax avoidance by these big corporations. No, you're not. You don't have the power to. You don't have power because you're in government. You're not in corporations. So I just wanted to kind of remind people that there's another way of looking at this story. Be very wary of it. I'll be very surprised if anything comes of it whatsoever.
Now, before we touch very briefly, because your chariot will arrive shortly.
I wish it was. That'd be an amazing thing to come out of the building and there was actually a chariot.
Yep.
That'd be wicked.
Hey, Nikki, thanks for thinking of me again. Yes, I'm listening. Guess what? I had a puff of a cigarette today and it was disgusting.
Oh,
hated
great.
it. I'm using an e-cig to help me with the cravings. And I'm Indian, by the way, says Miss
God.
T. So congratulations to you. Well done. And keep vaping then instead.
Miss T, go for it. All power to you, girl. Well done.
Yes, well done you. So very quickly, Jamie, because we're going to carry on talking to many of the... Edward in Shepherd's Bush says Jamie is dynamite. Agree with everything he says.
Edward,
Thank you,
the
Edward.
fiber's in the post, Edward. Good lad, well done.
And what you must always remember is that for every one person who takes the time out to call up or email, there are thousands who don't but feel the same way.
I hope so. Please read the New Internationalist magazine, folks. This is where it's at. This is where my voice is really coming from, is the New Internationalist magazine.
Well done, well plugged. So very quickly, the story of the
Workfare story.
Yes,
yep.
Kate Riley.
So that's, since I sent this story into your fantastic producer, the story's got a lot more interesting with
Ian Duncan Smith.
Ian Duncan Smith saying, I mean, look, he's saying that she may well have been studying geology, but shelf stacking is just as important. This is really serious kind of detachment from reality here, and I really hope people have caught that this, what a messy thing that Ian Duncan Smith just said. Okay, so to remind you guys of the story, Workfare is a situation whereby people will not receive their benefits, their unemployment benefit, unless they agree to go on free work. Okay, so we had a student, Kate Riley, who was already volunteering for a local museum. So I assume that she was very interested in ending up getting a career in that, so she's getting work experience already, volunteering, working in a museum as a kind of sort of assistant curator. So she was already doing the right thing. And then along comes the Workfare organisation saying, right, you will not get your benefits unless you go and work for Poundland for free. And she did go and work for Poundland for free. She had to stop doing this really valuable time that she was spending at the museum. And she took them to court, OK? So on February the 12th, 2013, the DWP and the Tory-led coalition government suffered a terrific defeat at the Court of Appeal as their Workfare, mandatory unpaid labour schemes, were declared illegal. This is sensational. So then you're listening, you know, this is one of those few rare mornings you wake up and you see a piece of news and you go, things are going our way, yoo-hoo, it's so rare, you know. And then you listen to the government, because what the kind of court of appeal, what their findings came out with was, and that means that all you people out there who have been forced to work for free, otherwise you won't get your unemployment benefit, and those people who said, right, that's it, I'm not going to work for free, and they had their unemployment benefit cut, they now are able to claim for that unemployment benefit. That's amazing. So it's like a tennis match. You see this story, and then you go, right, over to the other side of the court and look at the politicians, and they go, no, we're not going to pay it. And it's just like they've just dug in, and they go, no, we're not going to pay that, and it's wrong, and we don't agree, and come on. It was such an outrageous thing to do.
Well, we're going to carry on talking about this.
But how dare those corporations, those companies out there, you know, there's a whole load of them, not just Poundland, how dare they accept this? That's what's awful. Yes, we'll have free labour. And, you know, shame on you organisations out there. And we will continue to name you. You know, the campaign against Workfare is really strong.
Look at Mel's face through there.
What's he doing?
He's just like, right.
Anyway,
Jamie, we've run out of time.
That's our time. I had an absolute ball, as usual.
If you enjoy listening to Jamie, then please do follow him on Twitter. It's at Jamie Kelsey-Fry, all one word. You can follow at New Int. That's the New Internationalist magazine. They're also an independent book publisher, so do check them out if you're interested in this. And we welcome you back very soon, I hope.
I look forward to it. Look after yourself and all your listeners out there. Cheers now.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.